Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Accreditation TV. We appreciate you guys being here. Been doing this for over a year now. Hard to believe. I guess we should start calling this season two, because we're kind of into season two. Maybe that'd be kind of cool. So welcome. It's good to see our subject matter experts again. Monica, it's been a while. You've been
It
busy.
has.
Glad to have you back. It's always fun to share these times with you and get your expertise. And Tim, it's good to see you as well. Tim Adams, everybody knows Tim. Tim's been working hard, helping a couple of hospitals actually get ready for a survey that's imminent. May show up real soon. So we don't know if any Joint Commission people are lurking around and watching and have some insight. I guess it won't help unless I say where, and I'm not going to. But anyway, it'd be nice to know when they're going to show up. Wouldn't that be great, like the old days? So anyway, great to see you guys. Just real quick before I forget, if you want the CECs and you're one of our Ready Now Connect members, jump on over there. We'll take care of that for you. And if you're not, you want to be, let us know. I'm glad you guys have the time to be here today. I know things have been kind of hopping. We're doing a lot of surveys and a lot going on. So, but we're having fun doing these. We're going to keep doing them. Get a lot of good feedback from people. If you've got questions, if you remember, there's three. You look down the bottom of the screen. There's three little dots. Click on that. There's a little Q&A question area there. If you click on that, we can actually see that. If you just put stuff in the chat, we can't. If we don't get to your questions today, we'll definitely do them via email later on. So thank you again. By the way, my name is Steve Sponberg. Y'all probably already know that by now, with MSL Healthcare Partners. Going to talk about event reporting today, and which is kind of a big deal. When the subject came up, the schedule came out, my first thought was sentinel events, but my SMEs here corrected me that it doesn't encompass all events. So we're going to talk about more than just kind of sentinel events. But let's start with the requirements, and we're going to focus a little bit on Joint Commission, but frankly, it's broader than that. DMV, hospitals, CMS. I mean, you still have to have that. I should not talk. I should let you guys talk about the infrastructure. So let's talk about what are the regulatory requirements. I don't know, Tim, do you want to start with that, and then we'll let Monica chime in, or how you guys want to do that?
Take it away, Tim.
So,
There are, and of course, I kind of come from the physical environment side of the world,
I would have
life
never
safety
guessed.
side of the world. There are specific requirements for reporting some events in the physical environment. We'll talk, I think a little bit later, we'll talk about some specific things related to that. But reporting is not just clinical events. There are other things that trigger a requirement for us to report to somebody, a authority having jurisdiction, a accreditation organization, whoever that may be. There's a need, and I know Monica will get into this, for having a good reporting mechanism within the facility. How do we communicate events when somebody discovers something, sees something, had some involvement in a um, unexpected or a bad event? How do we report that internally, and then to assure that any external reporting that needs done is taking place? So I think as we talk a little bit, we'll be looking at not only the external, but how do we how do we report events internally within our organization and act on those?
So, yeah, I mean, it's important stuff, right? And I know, at the risk of beating a dead horse, no offense, Monica, I know you're a horse person, but that I mean, we talk about culture a lot, right? And what you're in terms of what you're talking about, and I think what Monica might be talking about, is this. It starts with a culture that encourages that kind of event reporting rather than discourage it, right?
Absolutely. And it's one of the challenges that every organization still faces. Even though we've been working on reducing errors since the 90s, quite frequently, um, it is still a huge problem, but improving. Organizations do still struggle with the culture, and understanding that reporting events is a positive and not a negative, throughout the organization in whatever set department you're in. Because that's the only way that we can figure out what isn't working and how to improve it is if we know about it.
Exactly. So Monica, could you help us a little bit with the regulatory requirements
Sure,
there?
absolutely. On the clinical side, we actually touched on this back in January, the last time I was um, uh, doing one of these sessions with you.
Wow.
We were talking about performance improvement, and error reporting in the regulatory standards is intertwined with performance improvement and QAPI, the crappy programs. So it's integral to that, and it's spread throughout the performance improvement and leadership standards. So specifically. You know me, I'm kind of a standard nerd. I'm going to cite it so you can go back and
Yeah,
look.
that's fine.
Um, the PI standard 120101 EP1 specifically addresses the need to have an error and adverse event reporting system in place. Um, and that system is typically something like RL Solutions. A lot of organizations use, the data collection online system RL Solutions, or there's others out there. That's just a common one. But it's important to have something like that in place, as well as all the processes that support that, that drive learning from errors and incorporating that data into the improvement systems. So, in that PI standard, there are three EPs, but EP1 is specifically focused on adverse events, processes, and learning from those events. Then that bleeds over into all of the other aspects of performance improvement and how you use data to improve, as well as bleeding over into the leadership standards, specifically LD 120101 EP1 reads that the hospital develops, implements, maintains, and documents an effective, ongoing, data driven hospital wide quality assessment and improvement program. And that's specific to the QAPI COP 482.21. So by saying data driven, what I'm getting at is the event reporting system is what is a gold mine of data that every organization has access to that you can use to identify opportunities for improvement and use that data throughout the improvement cycles that you have, whether it's PDSA, whether it's DMAIC, whether it's lean. They're all data driven processes for improvement. And the event reporting system data is integral to that, to identifying where there's opportunity.
So putting your surveyor hat on for a minute, what are
Mm.
some of the things that when you go out, how do you know that an organization's doing a good job with this?
Mm-hmm. So, specifically, in the survey process guide for the PI section, they get very detailed on what they're looking for to demonstrate that you have these event reporting systems in place and that you have the whole PI, QAPI improvement processes in place. And again, uh, now in the version of the process guide that I have, you can go to the PI section, specifically pages 111 through 117, and it goes line by line what they're looking for in documents, in what they're observing for, and what they're going to be talking to staff and up to the board members about. So, as far as documents, I mean, they're looking for everything from HR training documents that every employee is taught how to access the event reporting system and how to report events. They're looking for documentation of the data that comes from that event reporting system. They're looking for policies around event reporting, and that would include your Sentinel event policies as well. But everything from near miss events, from Tim to the on the facility sites, how to use work order data for when a problem's found there. They're looking for documentation that that the errors and events that are reported are incorporated into the QAPI plan, and that is used to drive improvements in the organization. So, documentation of that whole improvement cycle, all the way up to the reporting to the board. As far as observations, they will look for opportunities to see staff do that type of reporting, that they understand how to access the reporting system, that they can demonstrate how to do that. um, and then in interviews, they're looking for staff at all levels in every department, and that's something we have to understand, is that this is hospital wide. Every department needs to be able to do this, that in interviews of staff, that they can talk about, that they know about the reporting system, they can talk about how they access it, they can cite examples of when that might have been done if they were ever involved, um, all the way up through leadership and the board being able to specifically speak to: what data do you see? How is it used? Do you know about errors, medication errors, um, uh, surgical errors, any kind of errors, or adverse events like adverse drug events? Do you get data on that? And what do you do with it? And do you have evidence that the organization is improving? All of that is laid out in the survey process guide and in the PI evaluation tool that is in the survey process guide at the end. It's way back in the page like 623 through 632. There's a whole bunch of, that whole evaluation tool is like a checklist. Can we show X, Y, and Z? So I really encourage you to use that.
Yeah. So is your expectation then when you go out and survey, and because there's a whole in most hospitals there's a department that does exactly what you just said, and they live their lives in spreadsheets, and they take all this data and they aggregate it and they transform it and they analyze it and they produce these dashboards, and then they send those up kind of to the next level of leadership, which ultimately gets summarized again at the board level, and the board level sees a handful of indicators. Because what I think I'm hearing you say is like the expectation is the board needs to understand how to drill down on those indicators, or at least have the opportunity to drill down quickly and say, well, why, let's just, God forbid, let's say surgical procedure errors is on our list and it's higher than the established benchmark, that they can quickly get down to the root cause and understand and articulate that during a survey. They need to be able to speak to not only why, but how that gets reported to them and how often they look at it and what action as a board they take. Is that what I'm?
At the very least, they will be looking for the board to be able to speak to that they have seen the reports. They know that the organization has systems and processes in place to address those reports, and the data, and that they have seen over time improvements in problems that have been identified and brought to the board. So,
Okay, that
at a
makes
minimum,
sense.
they need to be able to do that. Um, to do that, though, and this could be a whole nother session, um, boards need to understand data and how to ask the questions. When you think about your board of directors or board of trustees, whatever you call them in your organization, most of them are not healthcare people. Most of them are business people or community members that need to be essentially guided, taught how to look at this data and what types of questions to ask. And
Yeah.
that could be a whole nother session. And there are programs out there that can help boards become more effective in driving improvements in an organization.
And I think we ought to do that session because I'm getting a lot of questions about that from people, and I think
Mhm.
it'd be great to do that. So every time you and I do one of these, we always go, that could be a whole nother session. So we should do that. So I appreciate you clarifying that. So let's talk about external reporting requirements, both in the physical environment and clinical. Whoever, I think, Mike, you want to, or maybe Tim, you've been quiet. You want to jump in on that one first, and then we'll,
Yeah.
It's
Actually, I think Tim has more requirements on the physical environment side than we do on the clinical side.
yeah, for sure.
Sometimes the physical environment, this whole thing in our interaction with various authorities having jurisdiction, uh, kind of operates in the dark. It happens, but it's not always front of mind. But there are several situations or um, instances where we are required as a healthcare organization to report an event outside of the facility. And most folks involved in facility management probably know this quite well, but others in the facility may not be aware. A couple of examples: if we have a fire alarm or a sprinkler system impaired, then there's a requirement that we contact whoever responds to the fires, the fire department or whoever it may be, and notify them. Our liability insurance and our uh, insurance coverage for the facility, they may require that they want to know because your liability just went up, when systems are down.
Way.
So
Yeah.
that reporting takes place, and in the ideal world, that information should get passed along so that leadership is aware that it is taking place. And if you have a physical environment committee or something of that, I know for folks that are Joint Commission accredited, some of that language has kind of gone away, but it's still a great way to manage things. And so we may report through there. That report may go
Right.
to quality, so it works its way up. Um, an instance that some folks may not be aware of is if we have to evacuate, evacuate all or part of a hospital. That needs reported in most states to the Department of Health immediately. Sometimes that's managed through our emergency management, but again, a reporting structure outside. If we have a medical device that um, could have been involved in a death or a serious injury, there's some reporting requirements there. In the case of death to the FDA, in the case of something that could have been bad, we report to the manufacturer. So even though there may not have been an adverse event, manufacturers have this reporting requirement too that they are involved in. And there's, I haven't looked to see currently, but uh, traditionally more than 2 million reports of medical device things that happen to the FDA each year. So it's a pretty sizable thing. Now, many of those were uh,
That's
nothing bad happened, but could have happened. So
could have happened. Well, so I mean, you're talking about the Safe Medical Devices Act, right?
yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
the truth is, I don't. It seems like we've kind of almost not. I hate to say forgotten, but we don't talk about that as much as we used to in the surveys.
Yeah.
But it's definitely
And
still there. It hasn't gone away.
many organizations will not have an event or it's rare, and that's good. But
Yeah.
still one of those things to be aware of. And internally, we should be reporting those things too, so that when something, usually when something really bad did happen, we know about that. But
Hmm.
an almost, sometimes maybe that doesn't get passed along, and we really should look at the almost. Was it a device failure? Was it a um, an user error? Do we have the wrong device trying to do something that it's not intended for? What was the root cause of that? Fits right into what Monica was talking about with our performance improvement. Look at our history and our information and try to prevent those things from happening. So this whole thing of reporting, it really comes down to communication. It's communicating internally, and then where we need to, or where for the sake of the greater good, sometimes we're
Mhm.
going to report outside of our organization, uh, either because of a mandatory requirement or because alerting somebody, for instance, with a medical device that something almost happened because of its design or function or something may save somebody somewhere else.
I totally
Yeah.
agree with you, Tim, about the near miss and the focus on those things that almost happened. That's in the even in the survey process guide and the PI evaluation tools. It talks about, are those things included in the program and the processes? Are you looking at the near miss events, and are they being discussed and talked about and learned from as well? And that really speaks to the maturity of the program at the organization if they're including those things. So I totally agree with it's very important to not just focus on those few bad things that actually meet the patient and affect the patient, but all those things that could have. Absolutely.
So,
Clinically,
can,
I'll just
yeah.
point out that uh, external reporting is a real touchy subject when it involves patient harm, um, of any kind, patient injury. And Joint Commission has taken the stand that they encourage organizations to report to external agencies when an error or event has occurred that reaches the level of a sentinel event, to externally report to the Joint Commission Sentinel Event database. Is encouraged but not required. It is optional, but they do encourage it. And they also encourage reporting to other external agencies, like Tim mentioned, like the FDA, like the medical device MedWatch for medication errors and the medical device reporting. All those things, they encourage it, but there's no regulation that absolutely requires it from the clinical perspective to report those things. Your system, every risk management system will include reporting externally to your legal partners, of course, like Tim mentioned. So if you have an error or harm, that you're reporting it through your insurance companies because your organization is now at risk for that. So that is an external reporting that you are internally requiring for your own protection, but it's not federally required. It's not. It may be in some states. I don't know all 50 states regulations, but there may be some specific state requirements. But the other place that might be things might be externally reported to, I think I mentioned, was a patient safety organization. And those became very big several years ago. They were developed to give a level of protection to reporting actual patient harm and errors that impacted patients for the purpose of learning from them without putting organizations at legal risk, or at least by reducing that legal risk. So some organizations belong to patient safety organizations or PSOs and others don't. But that might be another external reporting that is optional, um, unless it is a specific state requirement in your state.
Yeah, I know I say this all the time, but Monica and I share this love for aviation and background in aviation. And it's like they do so much better
Hmm.
at collecting this information, analyzing. I don't know if they're doing a better job analyzing it, but they
Hmm.
definitely do a better job collecting it and then sharing the learning from it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm such a nerd. I spend a lot of evenings watching YouTube videos about aviation accidents and, what was the root cause. And, often 99 times out of 100 is completely preventable,
Hmm.
and that's the same. I don't know if that percentage is the same for healthcare, but my guess is it's pretty darn close.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I wish we could figure out how to be better at sharing that information. But so give me an example or scenario how this would work within an organization or how it should work.
So Tim, you want to start with something that might come out of the physical environment side and how it gets reported, and we can kind of walk it
Okay.
through the how it should go in a system. Hmm.
We'll start with a very simple example. Um, a CNA or um, somebody walks into a clean utility room, soiled utility room, and there are items stacked too high on shelves and they interfere with the sprinkler.
Never happens.
What happens 99.9% of the time is the person walks out of the room and nothing happens. It just sits there. But if that person knows that, yes, we have a red line on the wall, or we have said 18 inches, whatever the hospital is doing. And of course, there is a regulation behind that, an NFPA requirement. But um, what should happen is they report to the department manager, whoever's in charge at the moment, letting them know that there's something going on. And then that should, and again, this is a very simple situation, but that would move up the chain to figure out what is the root cause of that. Or is there inadequate storage, or the too many supplies, or does somebody just not know? The people that stock the shelves, maybe somebody knew and they don't know, and find out what that root cause is. Maybe it's a problem that we have uh, inadequate space to serve the needs of the patient on that floor, which is very common. Is
Hmm.
there a construction renovation solution? Is there a supply chain and delivery solution?
Hmm.
So we take this very simple problem, try to figure out the root cause, and see if we can correct it. And then we say, it's just something stacked too close to a sprinkler on the shelf. We have bigger problems to deal with. Yes, we do. But when a fire starts in that room and the sprinkler cannot suppress the fire or contain it to that room, we've got a whole lot bigger problem. So much of
Hmm.
what we're doing is not, or shouldn't be, I guess, trying to correct what's already happened before the adverse event has already happened. And yes, when they happen, we definitely take action to try to keep that from ever happening again. It's how do we keep that situation from happening? Um,
Hmm.
we, as a physical environment person, I see things that kind of border on the clinical. Clinical folks see things in the physical environment. If we just collaborate and
Hmm.
work together and have a way to share information and work towards solutions, we can truly make a difference in the safety and the outcomes of the patients, by collaborating and having a slight awareness even of things outside of our realm, just have our eyes open. I always
Hmm.
think a clean and solid utility room, there's 4 or 5 things to look for when you go in there. They're simple, they're straightforward. It would eliminate most of the problems that creep up in those places. When I'm walking and I see a defibrillator or surveying, I always look to see the expiration date on the pads. That's
Hmm.
kind of more of a clinical thing, but I know it's an issue. And
Hmm.
I know that it's commonly a problem, like especially on pediatric pads where they rarely get used.
Right.
And so it's just having a set of eyes, and then I could just walk by and say, "Oh, those are expired. Next project," instead of reporting, or starting that conversation about what what's that there is an issue here, and then we can work collaboratively toward how to solve that issue.
I mean, that's a good
So,
example of the crossover between surveyors too, right? I mean, and and that's something we at MSL, we work really hard to make sure that we kind of cross train each other, and we look for, the things that the others would do when we're doing surveys, because we want to cover as much ground as possible. But I gotta assume that DMB, Joint Commission, and I don't know about CMS because that's weird, but that they do the same sort of thing as they create their teams. I'm sorry, Monica, I didn't mean to step on you. Go
that's
ahead.
okay. No, I was just gonna to bring out that even though this very simple um, example that Tim brought up, and it begins with one person identifying one issue, and for an organization, if with your PI processes that are in place, either that person would report it to their supervisor, take care of the problem, or maybe an organization requires something like that to go through. If it's a physical thing, go through the work order system. If you need more shelving, for instance, can you add more shelving, or can you move something, or so the work order system's another way for it to be reported. And if it gets reported to a supervisor or a manager, well, then would that person then enter an issue into the event reporting system? Um, or, would it be just verbally communicated and captured else, in the PI program? regardless, however, as Tim said, communication's key. It has to be communicated. And then you have to determine, is it an isolated incident? Like this is only one sprinkle head in one room, or is this
Mhm.
an organization wide problem? And that's where these conversations and using your PI processes and your PI methodologies and come into play. So if you see it once and you fix it, okay, maybe it's a one and done. But my guess is many of these problems that an individual sees are actually hospital wide. So then you need to verify through data. Well, does this occur in 1 out of 10 supply rooms, or is it in 9 out of 10 supply rooms that we have block sprinkler heads? Then it becomes a broader project, right? So then it should become a collaborative effort between your facilities folks and the clinical staff in ensuring that we understand why it's occurring and remove those causes, make sure everyone understands, is educated and knows what should be happening, and then follow up with data collection in an ongoing manner. So the regulations are very specific about that these have to be ongoing processes and that your data has to show improvement, which then implies that you have to follow the problems and collect additional data to be able to demonstrate that the problem was resolved. So, a simple problem can actually become a large one when you understand if it's crossing the whole organization. And then using your, as I said, your PI systems, your improvement systems and processes to correct it, not just in the one location, but everywhere. And then you have true improvement in an organizational um, quality and safety, because that absolutely impacts patient safety.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm most excited about now with what we're doing with our spotlight solution that we're providing our clients when we do mock surveys and continuous readiness engagements with them with action plan or the ability to show repeat findings, right? So we were here, or you were doing, you're using the rounding tool,
Hmm.
combined, we've seen this event happen repeatedly over the last 12, 24, 36, however many months, which
Hmm.
means we're treating symptoms, we're not curing disease, right? And it's all about high
Right.
reliability. It's like we went to all this effort to build this tool because we want to help our hospitals reach that high reliability, cure that disease, and move on to the next challenge. Because there's a multitude of challenges that we need to solve in healthcare. I guess I'm getting old because I'm like, now I'm starting to go, okay, time is running out. We got to fix this stuff, and I mean, y'all hear me share this story all the time, but when I had my little incident back in 1984, I had like 4 near misses. And those 4 near misses over the course of, 5 months in the hospital are still in the top 10. 40, I mean, how many, I don't want to add a bunch of years later. And it's like, why is that? I mean, some of it I know is just inherent risk doing healthcare, but others is just, it's like, I don't know if it's because we work in a vacuum, if we, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I wish I did because I
Hmm.
would say, let's fix this now. But,
Hmm.
and so let's, kind of bring this thing. I know we're kind of getting close to the witching hour. We want to keep these things as close to 30 minutes as we can. But so, any final thoughts you guys want to bring to the table about event reporting and, what a surveyor is going to look for, how to present it, if you want to talk about that, or, um,
I,
we've covered a lot of that ground, I know, but
I think documenting and presenting things you already are doing. Sometimes we're doing performance improvement. We just don't call it that. Um,
yeah.
a simple 3 or 4 paragraphs about a specific situation, what we have done to correct the immediate, what we're doing to try to prevent this in the future. Um, the more, because often, and again, I'm on the kind of the physical environment side. Often we're doing that almost daily. We discover something, We take care of it. We try to keep it from happening again. Um, just a little brief explanation of that. And one thing that might be, if organizations have a formal EOC, but a physical environment committee, having departments periodically um, share their stories. And this again is more related to physical environment, but just take 3 or 4 minutes in that meeting for uh, radiology or someone else to share. This is something we've identified in the physical environment that we worked on improving. Doesn't have
Hmm.
to be elaborate. We don't need hundreds of pages of colored charts. It's great to have the data and the presentation, but what's more important is we found a problem, we took these steps, we monitored it, and we're better than we were. And just share the stories. And then when it's survey time, you got lots to talk about.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember you just struck a nerve because I remember years ago I was doing a survey. I might have been doing it with Monica, and I was asked the facility person. I said, "Give me an example of something you improved in the environment of care." And they're like, "Oh man, we haven't done anything." You know, oh, it's too bad. I'm make a note with my legal pad, old school days, and we're walking to the cafeteria for lunch, and we go by. They're putting up these little rails, low to the on the wall. And I'm like, what's that all about? He goes, well, we've been having a lot of wall damage from these carts. And so, we decided we would do a trial and we put these rails up and it like eliminated the wall damage. So now we're putting them everywhere. We're in the high traffic areas. I'm like, so tell me again how you don't do performance improvement, but they just don't think about it. It's like,
Hmm.
it's almost, so anyway, Monica, have you got anything you want to add?
Just one final thought for me. I worked in patient safety, risk management areas, performance improvement for many, many years. And one of the biggest struggles is getting risk management over the hump of working with quality and using the event reporting data as it should be used, and that is to improve. A lot of organizations think event reporting and think it's uh, should be kept secret and not
Uh-huh.
discussed and not revealed because those are problems and those are errors that you shouldn't talk about. When in fact, the absolute opposite is true. Risk management and quality and patient safety, all of the departments that um, have the knowledge and the skills and the resources to help the organization identify problems and improve should be in lockstep. They should be working closely together, and that data should be used to improve and not kept locked away behind the wall of, oh, this is a legal problem or a potential legal problem, and we shouldn't talk about it. In one organization that I worked in, I went in and they were typical. They were having a lot of quality issues. And we really worked on developing a very robust event reporting system and patient focus on patient safety and changing the culture. Well, within a couple of years, my attorneys came to me and said, "Did you pick different attorneys? Because we're not getting any cases to litigate anymore. We're really, did you drop us as your firm?" And it's like, no, we fixed the problems.
That's
You know,
awesome.
but that only happened because we kinda tore down that wall between risk management and performance improvement so that we could all work together
Yeah.
to solve those problems. So I do think that's a critical aspect of event reporting that organizations really need to work on their culture and make sure that that's what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the most common problems, I think, in healthcare. I think that's why those poor problems still exist, decades later, is because that wall and that fear and understandable. I mean, everybody wants to get a quick buck from litigation, and everybody worries about that information getting out of the field. I mean, kind of tell two cities that one hospital had a bad event and they absolutely buried it because they were out of fear, and it would have been a great learning example for a lot of other organizations. Another one that we work with had an event and they were very boldly just put it out there. So this is what we learned. This can happen at your organization. Um, this CEO is already retired, but I mean, took a lot of courage to
Hmm.
do that, both just with the community and beyond. But I don't think they had any negative ramifications from it. And in fact, quite the opposite. I think they were celebrated for it. So, well, I really appreciate both of you giving your time today. I know it's been a busy few weeks, and I'm sure everybody appreciated it. Again, we appreciate you guys joining us today. If you want to see Siege or one of our Connect members, let us know. We'll make sure we get those to you. If you're not, let us know because we'd love to have you join that community. Um, look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks, and thanks again for joining us today. And thank you both, Monica, Tim. It's good to see you both.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Always love
Enjoy
having
the
you.
day.
You
Mhm.
too.